Bonjour and welcome to Note Set 8. This is going to be the official title of the note set, what you see in orange at the top of this slide. Instead of writing 2A.1, you should be making this Note Set 8 and putting the orange title at the top of the page in your spiral. The first part, we're going to be talking about the conjugation of ER verbs. Most verbs end in ER. That's a suffix, and that's why it's in red and it has a dash in front of it. Make sure that you copy the dash. In order to conjugate any French verb that ends in ER, you chop off the ER suffix from the infinitive. Remember, that's the unconjugated form of the verb. And you add the endings that you see below on the T chart, the conjugation chart. Those are in red, and most of them are silent. The sample verb that you see is parler, which means to speak, but this chart can be used, these endings can be used for all ER verbs that you encounter. You'll see that the singular ones and the plural ones are where they should be on the chart, as you would expect them to be. The conjugation pronunciations are je parle, tu parles, on parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, elle parle. Once you've copied this chart, we're ready for the next slide. You may wish to pause the slide presentation while you copy this chart because this is a copying activity listing the variety of ER verbs that you'll be seeing in our chapter. They are adorer, aimer, aimer mieux, arriver, chercher, commencer, dessiner, détester, donner, étudier, habiter, manger, oublier, partager, penser, regarder, rencontrer, retrouver, travailler, and voyager. You will be held accountable for the definitions of these verbs. One grammatical hiccup that you have to take into consideration when you're working with ER verbs is that anytime you're working with je in front of a vowel or vowel sound, it will become J apostrophe. H's are silent, so what you're actually hearing are the vowel sounds. Then you have the J apostrophe directly in front of the verb. Don't you leave any spaces, it's just an apostrophe. These two sentences read as follows. J'habite à Chicago, which means I live in Chicago, and j'étudie le français, which means I study French. Now we're moving to section C, which are the very specific verbs aimer, adorer, and détester, which are the three verbs of emotion that are listed on your chart. So adorer means to love, aimer means to like, and détester, watch the accent mark on that one, means to hate. It uses the little L word before the noun to tell exactly what it is that someone loves, likes, prefers, or hates. You can add the word mieux to aimer, as you can see, to make the equivalent of the English word to prefer. J'aime l'art means I like art. You don't translate the little L word. In French, you do need it there grammatically. Elle déteste le fromage. She hates cheese. How could anyone hate cheese, right? Although you do not translate the le from the sentence. On aime mieux les bananes. One prefers bananas. The does not come out in the English translation. It still has to be there in French. The next thing on the slide that you see is a very important new rule that talks about what happens when you have two verbs in a row. This is going to be happening from now on, not only with aimer, adorer, and détester, but also in future chapters with other verbs. However, for now, you only need to know that if you use aimer, adorer, or détester before an action verb, the first verb will be conjugated and the second verb will not. So the one that will be conjugated is the one that you see there in red. The second verb that is not going to be conjugated is there in blue. So you have j'aime parler français. J'aime is conjugated, parler is not, and it means I like to speak French. The second sample that you see is nous adorons regarder la télévision. We love to watch TV. And the final sample you see is ils détestent étudier. They hate to study. Again, in this bottom section, you have two verbs in a row in each sentence. The first one is always conjugated and the second one is not. Catch up on this slide and then we'll move on to the next one. Next, we have the big question about what it all means. When you conjugate a French verb, it actually can be translated three different ways in English. And a lot of the words that you see in the English sentences don't really appear in the French sentences. These are called gerunds, that's the ing ending in English. And then you see they are working and they are studying. The are is referred to as a helping verb in English. French does not have those. So you only need ils étudient le droit, and it means they study law. It means they are studying law. And it also means further, they do study law. Do is the helping verb. The other sample shows you that nous travaillons ici demain means all of those three things that you see. We work here tomorrow, we are working here tomorrow, and we will work here tomorrow. The next slide shows you that there are some special spelling rules that you need to deal with when your verb ends in a GER. So not just an ER, but the GER. So you have three from the chart, which are manger, to eat, partager, to share, and voyager, to travel. And this spelling rule also exists with CER verbs. The only one you have right now is commencer. But if you run across any other verb that ends in CER in French, it will also do the same thing. These verbs have a spelling change in the new form only, as you can see with manger, and it would be partager and voyager as well. You add an E before you put the ONS at the end. They've also given you voyager with the sentence that says nous voyageons avec une amie. You can see that there is an E between the G and the O, just like it was in mangeons, and also now voyageons. Over to the right, you see the spelling change with commencer. You add a cedilla, that's the little comma accent mark under the C. That's the one that it resembles an uncrossed 5. However, if you prefer to make it look like a comma, it's a lot easier. It's still pronounced commençons. The cedilla under the C make it sound like an S. Now we have the sentence, nous commençons les devoirs. The final slide is something new. It's talking about giving commands. If you give a command to someone in French, you only use one word, just as you would in English. So to give commands specifically with ER verbs, you use the conjugated endings, but without the subject pronoun. The to form is not actually the to form from the chart. It is actually the il, el, on singular form in a command only. So if you're talking to one person and you want to say, look, you simply say, regarde. If you want to use the equivalent of let's, which is kind of a we command, W-E in English, that you just make the new form and just say travaillons. One word means let's work, and that includes yourself. If you're talking to a vous and you want to say, for example, speak French, you use the vous form of that and you simply say parler français. It could be any language or it could also be any verb. The final one that you see there is a little bit unusual. It actually comes from the verb être, which is not an ER verb, but they did not tell you how to make a command with être when we did the être note set in the previous chapter. So you're learning now. It's pronounced soit, and if you're talking to one person, if you're talking to a tu who you know well, friend or family, you say soit and then whatever it is that you want that person to be. Be patient, sois patient. and then just the asterisk just to remind you that it comes from Etra and it actually is from another chapter. This is the end of the note set. If you need to re-go and find anything that you missed or something else that you need to copy, if you want to listen to any of the parts again, that's something that you should be thinking about doing. Your finished task is to come to class tomorrow with this complete note set. It includes one more slide that you're going to be doing some practice problems on. So when I stamp your spiral tomorrow, that means that I'm going to see A through F, the completed note set, and I'm also going to see the answers only of the SAA activity, which is on the next slide. So copy those right underneath section F, and you will receive the stamp. Please let me know if you have any feedback about this recording. I look forward to finding out how you thought it went. Thanks. And here's your final slide. Again, it is answers only. Au revoir.